Nah, I done grew up around some people living their life in bottles. Granddaddy had the golden flask, backdoor every day in Chicago. Some people like the way it feels, some people want to kill their sorrows.
Hey guys, this is Karsh from UPro Gaming, and I'm really, first of all, let me say that I'm very, very excited to be here with y'all today. This is the very first upload onto this channel. It's the very beginning of this channel, period. By the time y'all see this video, it's probably going to have 0 or very, very few subscribers, very, very few views. I hope that changes sooner rather than later, but we'll just have to see. One way or the other, I'm going to keep making these videos. Today we're going to be looking at a Barbarian build guide. It's going to be a speed build. We're going to be looking at the Raekor 6 Seismic Slam Barb. Obviously, with Raekor, we're going to need all 6 pieces. We're going to need the helm, shoulders, gloves, pants, legs, and chest. The 2-piece saying that Furious Charge refunds a charge if it hits only one enemy. That's going to be very, very important for the cooldown breakpoints that we're going to have to hit. The 4-piece saying that Furious Charge gains the effect of every rune and deals 1000% increased damage. The damage is pretty negligible, but you're definitely going to want the gains the effect of every rune, because then you're getting the extra Fury per enemy struck, you're getting the extra charges, you're getting the stun, knockback, and freeze effects. And then the 6-piece set, every use of Furious Charge increases the damage of your next Fury spending attack by 2800%. This effect stacks up to 99 times, and every use of a Fury spending attack consumes up to 5 stacks. So what you're going to get is the 2800. When you have 5 stacks, you're going to be dealing 14,000% increased damage, which is absolutely ridiculous. I don't know that there's a higher damage multiplier in this game. It's very, very powerful. I know there's skills and builds that are stronger in the long run, but I don't know of any build that deals this much damage in one hit. It's absolutely ridiculous. I'm dealing crits of upwards of like 30 trillion at times if I get a really, really good roll. My average rolls are generally about 15 to 18 trillion, but it's still really, really high. Alright, so firstly, let's go over the stat priorities that you're going to want on every piece of gear. For your helmet, you're going to want strength, ideally critical hit chance, and seismic slam damage. Mine rolled vitality instead of seismic slam damage, but this is very, very replaceable. I'm just looking for a high enough strength value, and then I really don't want to waste the 88 Cul-de-Sac. It's not that high, but it's tasking enough to get one back up to 88. It takes a little while. For your shoulders, you're going to want strength, vitality, and then you're going to want cooldown reduction and area damage. You're definitely going to want cooldown reduction for the breakpoints that I was talking about earlier. We'll get a little bit more into that when we're done with the gear. On your gloves, you're going to want strength, crit damage, crit chance, and either cooldown reduction or area damage. Whether you get one or the other really depends on how your rings roll. We'll get back to that in a second, but if you do not get cooldown reduction rolls on both of your rings, you're going to definitely want it on your gloves. It's not really worth a weapon affix to have, so if you can get it on your gloves or both of your rings, it's very, very good for you. For the boots, we're going to want strength, vitality. Ideally, you're going to want all resist and then seismic slam damage. Mine rolled armor, but I was using these boots originally for a Furious Charge build that I was doing, so it rolled really well for Furious Charge. Whichever one I'm playing, if I'm playing the FC push build or if I'm playing this build, I'll roll seismic slam damage off for all resist, and then it works fine. Just roll one, back to the other, and so on. For your pants, you're going to want strength, vitality, and armor. You're going to want secondary resistances or pickup radius wherever you can get it. And then on your armor, you're going to want strength, vitality, and generally either life percent or all resist. It really depends on how it rolls. Mine, this is another instance where I was using it for my push build, and I just haven't really found a viable replacement to take over for this one, so I'm just running it with the 15% Furious Charge damage, but generally you would want it with strength, vitality, and either all resist or life percent. This build is a little bit squishy at times, so I am running diamonds in everything, including the helmet, obviously, for the cooldown. And then for the belt, to add a little bit of toughness to us, we're running the Pride of Cassius, which says increase the duration of Ignore Pain by 6 seconds. It rolls from 4 to 6. You're going to want 6. If you have 4, it's not really that big of a deal, but the 2 seconds does count, especially when you're pushing into the 90s and higher. Like I said, this really isn't a push build, but if you were using a push variant of this build, you would still want this belt, and you would still want it to be at 6 seconds. Ideally, you're going to want strength, vitality, all resist, and life percent. This is a really old Pride of Cassius. I got this back in, I think, Season 2 or Season 3, right before I stopped playing. So this one, I don't really remember whether it rolled vitality or not, if it just had a bad roll, or if it didn't roll it at all. I don't really remember, but ideally you're going to want life percent in place of armor. Alright, now let's talk about how we're juicing up Seismic Slam with the weapons and other things. Firstly, we're going to want a very, very good Fury of the Vanished Peak, which says reduce the Fury cost of Seismic Slam by 50% and increase its damage by up to 500%. I think it rolls from 4 to 500%, but you're going to want as close to 500% as you possibly can. If you don't have a really good one of these, then you're going to want to run a Furnace, which is what we have in the cube right now. Whichever one you have rolled better is the one you're going to want to use. Fury of the Vanished Peak is the better option because it, like very few weapons do, rolls with 5 primary stats. 4 of them being regular primary stats, and then the 5th one being a random-ish skill stat that you can roll off if your rolls are good enough. Luckily, I was lucky enough to get one of those rolls, and I rolled off, I think it was Ren damage for damage percent. But generally, you're going to want it to look exactly like mine does. You could put in place of area damage, you could put vitality if you feel like you're dying more often than you would like to. I know we don't like to die at all around here, but like I said, this build isn't all that tanky, but it's tanky enough and you're moving through the rift fast enough to where you generally don't have to worry about dying, but it does happen occasionally, especially if you get to a really bad Guardian or just a group with really bad affixes. You may just want to skip them. If you get one with, say, Arcane, Poison, Enchant, Mortar, whatever the case, if you feel like you need to skip it, go for it. Another thing that we're using is going to be the Bracers of Destruction, and Bracers of Destruction, again, beefing up Seismic Slam. Seismic Slam deals 500% increased damage to the first 5 enemies it hits. It's really, really powerful. I wish, as most people do, that it didn't have the first 5 enemies at the end of that, if it just had 500% increased damage, but what we're looking for is exactly the way that this one rolled. We want physical skill damage, we want strength, we want vitality, we want critical hit chance. Again, get pickup radius or secondary resistances wherever you can. With the rings, we are running the Bastions of Will set, the Focus and Restraint. Focus and Restraint saying when you hit an enemy with a resource generating attack or primary skill, deal 50% increased damage for 5 seconds. And then the second part of that, when you hit with a resource spending attack, deal 50% increased damage for 5 seconds. We are running both sides of that. Obviously, we're running Furious Charge as our generating skill, and then we're running Seismic Slam as our spender. You're going to, for the most part, keep up Furious Charge up at all times. It's going to be really, really good, really, really strong. However, on the second part of that, on the resource spending attack, you may not keep the second part of it up all the time, generally because you're moving from Elite Pack to Elite Pack. You're not really worried too much about trash. But if you get a big enough pack, or if it's trash worth killing, or if they're surrounding a pylon or something to that effect, you're going to want to kill those. If you can keep the second part of this up at all times, you're going to want to. Like I was saying about the gloves, the reason we have cooldown on the gloves is because one of my rings did not roll with cooldown, and neither of my rings rolled the way that I wanted them to. This focus here rolled with strength, crit chance, and cooldown, so I'm missing, obviously, the critical hit damage here. You're going to want the dream roll if at all possible, crit damage, crit chance, cooldown. And then my other ring rolled with a damage range, crit damage and crit chance. Obviously it's primal, so it rolled with maximum of all of those. But I would have preferred a dream roll on both of them. That way I could roll area damage on my gloves instead of cooldown. I really don't like having cooldown there. The more area damage you can get, the better. You're dealing massive amounts of damage, so when that damage spreads, it deals more massive amounts of damage. For our amulet, we are running a Hellfire amulet, and we're running our Hellfire amulet with the Nerves of Steel passive. We're going to have 5 passives total here. You want Nerves of Steel to be one of them, and you want it to roll like this. I'm not happy with the way mine rolled, obviously, because it's not ancient, it's not primal, and it only rolled with 15% physical skill damage. If this was ancient with, say, 17 or 18%, I would never even think about replacing this, but this needs to be replaced soon. It's the only piece of my gear for this build that isn't ancient. Alright, next let's talk about what we have in the cube. In the cube we are running the Furnace to deal 50% increased damage against elites. Very, very good. Like I said, we're basically jumping from elite to elite. We're trying to kill them as fast as we possibly can. Obviously, the faster you kill them, the faster you progress, so on and so on. We're running Nemesis Bracers for the pylons. Since we're moving so fast through the rift, we're going to get pylons at a pretty quick rate. I think at 33%, 66%, and 99%, you have a close to 100% chance for pylons to spawn. So you're generally, if you're in the right place, you're going to get at least 3 pylons. So spawning enemies off those pylons is always a good thing. And then we're running Band of Might because we are using Furious Charge, and the damage reduction is very, very nice. It makes this build way more tanky. If we weren't running Band of Might, we would not be able to run GR90s. It would be damn near impossible. Next, let's look at the skills. So for our passives, we're running obviously Nerves of Steel, and then we're running Ruthless, which says you deal 40% additional damage to enemies below 30% health, which is really, really good. It's really good for the Rift Guardian more than anything, because most of the elites in the Rift you're going to kill with 1, 2, maybe 3 hits if you get really unlucky. But the Rift Guardian is going to take you 3 or 4 probably rounds of charge, spin, charge, and so on. So we're going to want Ruthless here. It's going to be a big damage boost to kill that Guardian off, and to some of the elites and some of the trash mobs around. If you don't get, per se, if they weren't in the first 5 enemies hit, they're not going to deal near as much damage, so they might get them within that 40% or 30% health range, so you deal a bunch more damage and you definitely get them with the next hit. That would be great. Next, we're running Rampage, which says increase strength by 1% for 8 seconds after killing or assisting in killing an enemy. This effect stacks up to 25 times. This is generally a solo build, so you're going to be doing all of the killing yourself. But this is really, really easy to keep up because you're charging, and the elites that you're killing them so quickly. And then even when you're moving, you're slamming every once in a while, and you're killing mobs with those, of course, to keep your stacks up and also to keep this stack up. This is really, really important. Strength for Barbarians and Crusaders is irreplaceable. It obviously ups their damage, but it also ups their toughness. Next, we're running with No Escape, which says increases the damage of Weapon Throw, which we're not using. Seismic Slam, we are. Ancient Spear and Avalanche, which we're not, by 30% against enemies more than 15 yards away from you. We are running this in a sort of range build. We'll get more to that when we get to the legendary gems, which I'm sure you've already seen in the gear, but we're going to go over them in a little bit more detail. But this is going to fit in perfectly with the gems. It's a big damage boost at medium range, and then for another one of our gems, we're getting a huge damage boost at long range. So No Escape is a definite must. You're definitely going to want that. And then Berserker Rage, you deal 25% additional damage while near maximum fury. This is crucially important because of the way that Seismic Slam works. The damage is actually calculated, or starts to calculate, as you hit, not as you spin. So with Seismic Slam you do get that 25% additional damage, which is kind of weird, but I'm glad that it works out that way. It's additional damage. For the rest of our skills, we're running Warcry with Veteran's Warning for the toughness. Unleash a Rallying Cry to increase armor for you and your allies, which you generally won't have any, within 100 yards by 20%. You're definitely going to want that increased toughness. It's going to be crucially important to the build. You don't have a whole lot of toughness to begin with, so if you can get it without giving up damage, that's going to be what you want to do. Our second skill here, we're using Ignore Pain with Iron Hide, which just extends the duration from 5 to 7 seconds, which is very, very important for our third skill. We're going to be using Wrath of the Berserker Insanity. It's just an all-around great skill. Crit chance up, attack speed up, dodge chance up, move speed up, and then the 50% increased damage is a must-have. It's a huge damage multiplier here. We're using obviously Furious Charge. We're using Raekor, gotta have Furious Charge. It doesn't really matter which rune you take here because it gains the effect of every rune. So basically, all you're gonna want is you're gonna want to take one of the 2 physical runes, either Stamina or Merciless Assault. It doesn't really matter which one. And then we're taking Battle Rage with Bloodshed. Enter a rage which increases your damage by 10% and critical hit chance by 3%, lasts for 2 minutes, and then deal damage equal to 20% of your recent critical hits to enemies within 20 yards every 1 second. This is a huge damage boost. Basically what I like to do is I'll charge, get my 5 stacks, fill up my fury, I'll spin, and then I'll immediately rush into the group. If it's a big group, because you're dealing so much damage that when that bloodshed goes off, it destroys everything around you. That being elites, trash, even the Rift Guardian, if it spawns a bunch of ads, you can get it down in basically 2 shots. And then for the big daddy damage, we are taking Seismic Slam with the Rumble Rune, which says slam the ground and cause a wave of destruction that deals 620% weapon damage to enemies up to 50 yards in front of you. That 50 yards is going to be very, very important. 50 yards is almost, you have to be able to see the enemy, but it's almost off screen. It's really, really close to being off screen, but you do not want to hit them off screen. You will not deal any damage unless they walk into it. You're basically going to be hitting nothing but air. It's not going to be good for you at all. But the rune that we're taking is Rumble. Expand all remaining fury to cause the ground to shudder after the initial strike, damaging enemies in the area for 15% weapon damage for every point of fury expended as physical over 2 seconds. That's why we're going to want to take maximum fury. We're going to want to get maximum fury on a secondary on our weapon and on our belt. I unfortunately don't have it on my belt. That's why I'm trying to replace that belt. But I still do insane damage, and so will you with this. Even if you don't have increased fury on both or even on either of them, you're still going to deal crazy damage. You may not be able to push quite as high as a 90, 92. You may have to stay in the 80s for a little while, but it still does insane damage. Alright, next let's go over our legendary gems that we're taking. We're going to be taking the Bane of the Powerful, which says gain 20% increased damage for X amount of seconds depending on the level after killing an elite pack, and then gain 15% increased damage versus elites and take 15% reduced damage. So overall you're getting 35% damage after you kill the first set of elites, and then you're getting your 15% reduced damage as a passive, so you get that all the time. Nothing to worry about there. You could, in theory, swap this out for a Bane of the Stricken, which gives you 25% increased damage, but you don't get the damage reduction, and also you have to stack up hits on the enemy, so really it would only be effective or efficient when you're fighting the Rift Guardian. Throughout the Rift it's not going to help you a whole bunch. Things die really, really quickly. You don't really have to worry about hitting them multiple times. You charge, you smack them, and 1 to 2, maybe 3 times they're dead. Our second one we're taking is going to be Zeiss Stone of Vengeance, which says damage you deal is increased by 11.68 or X amount, whatever level it is, every 10 yards between you and the enemy, maximum of this much, and then there's a 20% chance on hit to stun the enemy for 1 second. The stun effect isn't really that important. It does play a minor factor, but this generally is why you're going to want to keep your distance at the initial strike because of the way that the Seismic Slam damage is calculated. It's very dynamic in the fact that it seems to register how far away you are away from the enemy the entire 2 seconds that the ground is shuddering. So if you move in closer while the ground's still shuddering, you're going to deal less damage as a result. So you want to stay as far away as you can, unless like I said, it's a really big mob, and then you can just kind of slam and then rush in there, and then bloodshed will clear it out for you. But generally, you want to stay away. Most elites don't spawn with a bunch of mobs around them, so bloodshed is more of like a trash destroyer than an elite destroyer. When it comes to elites and the Rift Guardian, you want to smash them and then get away. Something that I like to do is I'll get my charges up, get my fury going, and then when I slam, I'll actually run off screen. That way, and most elites don't teleport, and some Rift Guardians do, but it's not really that common for them to teleport out of your strike, especially since it has a conical shape to it. So if they want to, say, teleport to the left, to the right, or forward, it really won't affect you. The only way that it'll affect you is if they teleport at an angle out of the rumble, or if they teleport backwards out of the but the rumble stays where it is, and you only get to 50 yards, but after you slam and you take off screen away from them, it's still dealing that damage, and it calculates you at being 50 yards away. The third gem that we're going to take is going to be Bane of the Trapped, which says increase damage against enemies under the effect of control impairing effects by X, depending on your level, of course, and then at level 25 it says gain an aura that reduces the movement speed of enemies within 15 yards by 30%. So it basically gives you the effect for free, unless in fact it's a juggernaut, but this is one of the things that's really going to help you as far as rushing into trash or elites with a bunch of trash around them after you slam, because that damage is calculated in your Seismic Slam. So you have your Bane of the Trapped working when you're close, and you have your Zeiss Stone of Vengeance working when you're far away. So you have the best of both worlds in a sense. You definitely want these 3 gems. Like I said, this one could be replaceable if you're trying to maybe push with it, or if you're going a little bit outside of your damage range for it. You could switch this out for Bane of the Stricken instead, but in my experience, Bane of the Powerful is more efficient in the long. Alright, so now that we've looked at all the gear, all the skills, let's look at the breakpoints that we need to hit. So there is a specific percentage, that being 37%, at which Furious Charge will reset 100% of the time when it hits 3 or more enemies. So what we're looking at here with the 38.67% is we're going to get the 3 enemy recharge, we're going to get the 4, we're going to get the 5, and then with Furious Charge's 2-piece bonus, we're also going to get the 1. So long as you're not forcing yourself to mow through 2 enemies at a time over and over again, you shouldn't have any problem at all keeping your charges. We are also, like you can see here, my resistances are garbage except for poison. Barely any pickup radius. And then I'm missing 50% here for crit damage, and 12% here for crit damage, and 2% here for crit damage. So my gear is definitely not optimized, or as optimized as I would like for it to be. I know a lot of people would look at my gear and be like, blah 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 blah, it's great, it's great. I'm satisfied, but I'm not happy with it. If this would have rolled with the Dream Roll, this would roll with 50%, and I could finally get a good one of these damn things, then I would probably be smiley. But as for now, I mean, it'll have to do. It's good. It gets me where I need to be. Alright, so now that we've looked at the gear, looked at the skills, looked at the stats, looked at the cube, let's run a rift and see how it goes. We're going to run a 90 here today. Let's get it. Hope you guys enjoy. I hope you end up liking this build as much as I do. So as you can see, we're moving really, really fast. This build is very efficient if we could find some elites. Oh, that's a wall. Let's not do that. See, there's the 2 enemies there. Luckily, there was some more at the end of that charge. Here's some elites. Okay. We charge, we get all of our charges good. We get our fury capped. Always using an Oculus ring if you have one. It's definitely going to be beneficial to you. Oof, I almost died there. I think my nerves didn't pop. Oh, now they are. I gotta get these globes. Come on now. So this floor isn't exactly what I would like to see, but it's not, I guess, too terribly bad. We got another elite here. This is one of those ones where you want to kind of run off screen so you get your full damage out. We got our Oculus ring. Let's pop that. Let's pop here. And then there's one more. And oh, no, there's one more. Now he's dead. And let's continue on. We are not doing as well as I would like, but the Rift always has an opportunity to get better. So we'll see how it goes. Oh, here's a pylon over here. Looks like there was an elite over there. We're probably in good shape. Yeah, there's blues over here. There's this. So as you can see down at the bottom there, I have 30 stacks of Furious Charge because I'm not spending unless there's an elite there to kill. So what I like to do is I like to save up my charges, and then once I get to an elite, because it doesn't always take your full 5 stacks to maximize your fury, you want to try to build up stacks if you can, so that when you're in an area that doesn't have as many mobs, you have an opportunity to, and this is another bad floor, you have an opportunity to, there's another pylon. You have an opportunity to just kind of mow them down without having to worry about having the 5 stacks if you have, if you've gotten more than the 5 that were necessary. So right now I have 43, so I can basically spend them at my leisure. But It is important also to keep up the... See, I hit that one off screen so it didn't do any damage. But it is important also to keep up your focus and restraint stacks. You don't want to lose those if you have the choice, really. I mean, this rift hasn't really been that kind to me, so we're just kind of dealing with what we have. I let my bloodshed drop off there. That wasn't smart of me. Oh, that's an empty little area. I don't know why I keep running into little places that are just kind of closed off. And again, we do. It's not so bad though. This rift is, I mean, it's alright. It could definitely be better. It looks like we're probably going to go over the 4-minute threshold that I was hoping for, but you can tell this isn't that great of a rift. So when we get a rift that's actually good, the it mows things down. It's insanity. The damage is just crazy. So we can spawn the Guardian with these. Oh, we got a power pylon. Look at there. I like to run off screen or run as far away as I can. Let me just finish this up. Come over here and we'll get our loot and we'll carry on. Let's see if I can get something good for y'all on camera. Let's see. Probably not, but it's okay. We'll level up our gems. It looked like that one took us 4 minutes and 12 seconds, which isn't a terrible time, but it's definitely not optimized. But y'all saw those floors that we had. The elites on the second floor were a little nicer. The pylons were made it passable, but that's definitely not an optimized rift. So just imagine what it would be like, what the damage would be like if you had an optimized rift. It doesn't look like we got anything good here. Nope, no luck. Alright guys, we'll see you next time.
Nah, I done grew up around some people living their life in bottles. Granddaddy had the golden flask, back door every day in Chicago. Some people like the way it feels, some people want to kill.